Live from New York. It's the show that hasn't seen an eclipse since Brew was in 5th grade.
That's what he said. And what was his reasoning for
I was exaggerating.
I've been working.
Too busy. Too busy.
You guys were kids when I started working. That's true. I don't even know if Nick was.
What's that have to do with
Just looking, just glance at the sky.
Give it a look.
You seen one eclipse? You kind of seen them all. I mean, that's the truth.
Back-to-back 30-point championship games. Brew, without a championship, is Caitlin Clark still in the GOAT conversation?
She's on the periphery. She's on the periphery because of what she's accomplished, the impact on the game, but she's not the GOAT. It's only fair, all right? It's only fair when we have quarterback in the NFL, college male player, NBA player, rings come into play. You're not in the conversation without a ring. Dan Marino, some say the best they've ever seen sling, way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
No ring. As much respect as we give Marino, we kind of scoff at the notion of could he be the GOAT. Even Aaron Rodgers with just one ring, we say he can't be in the conversation. True. So she's not the GOAT. I got to be fair with what we usually judge by. Now, I've said last week she's the best I've ever seen. I'm not watching all the players, but some people would say Marino was the best they ever saw. But again, I think your accomplishments have to support a GOAT argument. I say Patrick Mahomes. We all say he's the best I've ever seen, but I would say not yet. He's not the GOAT just yet. So, and I also think this. There are so many players in women's basketball that have won 2, 3, or even 4 rings. And a lot of them obviously went to UConn and Tennessee, and some would say, well, yeah, they went to these powerhouses. Yeah. But you also could look at it like they also sacrificed individual stats. Now, had they gone to a school where they were the show, they could have put up big numbers. So there's no one from UConn in the top 10 in scoring. Maya Moore is 11. Shamika Holslaw from Tennessee is 12. There's no one from Tennessee in the top 10. So I can't put her. She can be in the conversation because of the impact, but she's not the GOAT.
Okay, so that last point you made, I actually totally agree with, which is there's a trade-off in everything in life. Is sports and accomplishments and GOAT talk included, which is had she been on a better team, she almost assuredly would not have all these same records. Right. You know what I mean? Because she wouldn't have been the entirety of the offense, all of it. But I also think because it is a team game and the context of everyone's context is different. Like, it is easy to make the argument, well, it's Breanna Stewart, guys. She has 4 titles, 3 Players of the Year, and her last 3 years at UConn, they were 116-1.
That's not bad.
What more would you like?
Well, 117
Right, but then, so they were her last 3 years, they were 116-1. But then you get the context of, oh, so what happened to them after she left? The very next year that they left, UConn was 36-0, headed to the Final Four, and lost in overtime. The year after that, they were 36-0, headed to the Final Four, and lost in overtime. So even without her, those 2 teams went 72-2. And so that is the context of it, which is why, to me, there is an eye test element of this, because I agree with you on pro sports, Brew, that if you are ringless in a career, that seems like how could you be the best?
But when you think about the best college player ever.
On the men's side, the men's side, it's easy. I don't think there is a definitive answer on the women's side. I don't. Like, Cheryl Miller is the one I've always said because, I'll be totally honest, because I was told. Right. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to go back and research women's basketball in the 80s, but you made the great point that someone else in that discussion was her teammate on those teams at USC and Cynthia Cooper.
The McGee sisters.
And so, so to me, I would like to just do a thought exercise for a moment, because the only reason South Carolina is not the 3-time defending national champions on a Wooden Bruins-esque 82-game winning streak right now is because she beat them.
Well,
so no,
maybe.
What do you mean?
Because they might.
Then they would have had to beat LSU. That's fair.
Yeah,
okay, but that's true because that wasn't the championship game. Point I'm making is, in a weird way, I think her beating South Carolina last year hurt her standing in some people's eyes in the GOAT argument. Because if it was just no one could win a title, there was this juggernaut program that won 80 straight games, that won 3 straight championships, that did all this stuff. And she, you know where her season ended? When she played them, each year. But instead, she beat them once, and then they didn't have enough left in the tank to beat LSU. The other question I would have for you guys is this, and at what point, I know you guys didn't like my if someone averaged 60 a game question. I understand that. But this is not a hyperbole. This is, I think it's real if you guys agree with it. The only player on Iowa that would be in the rotation for South Carolina, that would have been on the court for them yesterday, was Caitlin Clark. So at some point,
that's not definitive, but you can
having watched the game, you know what I mean? Again, having watched the game, watched the tournament, that's what I feel. And so I guess my point is, I'm not sitting here saying she's the greatest college women's player ever, because I don't feel that I am educated enough on the history to know that.
I feel similar.
But I've been watching it pretty closely since Shamiqua Holdsclaw, since I was a little kid and went to the Final Four in Kansas City. I was like, this is dope. And so Kathy Jolly and that Shamiqua Holdsclaw team, all the UConn teams, I can't say that I think Taurasi was better than her. I can't say that I think Breanna Stewart was better than her. I've watched it, and I can't say that I think anyone that I've seen is better than her.
No, I think that's fair. Here's the other thing, though. Cheryl Swoops, who obviously is an all-time great, she did go to a program that wasn't Tennessee or Connecticut. She went to Texas Tech, led them to a championship. So I just think, for me, being consistent, being fair with how I do men, I can't say she's a GOAT.
So, all right,
she could be in the discussion.
NBA draft, WNBA draft is next week. Caitlin's going to go #1 to Indiana Fever. Diana Taurasi was on with Van Pelt and kind of predicted what she was going to do next. And her quote is, look, SVP, Van Pelt, reality is coming. There's levels to this thing. That's just life. We all went through it. You know, you look superhuman against 18-year-olds, but now you're playing against grown women. And the Phoenix Mercury are already sort of touting this matchup, Taurasi versus Caitlin Clark.
Cooked by Caitlin Clark. Maybe not prime Taurasi wouldn't.
But Taurasi's 41 years old, so
which
maybe.
Is no, she's definitely going to get. Can I say something about this? About I have massive respect. Massive. Like Taurasi, I saw a lot of people were talking Maya Moore, and Brittany Griner's name came up. Prior to Caitlin Clark, Diana Taurasi was the best women's basketball player I've ever seen. She doesn't have the numbers Breanna Stewart or Maya Moore. To me, she was the best I had ever seen.
Great.
Her career's unbelievable. I really like Sue Bird, and I think their telecast is awesome. They were doing some not so low-key hating on Caitlin Clark.
Well, there's been a lot of that going on.
Right, but this was a UConn thing. This was a Paige Beckers should be getting this moment. Caitlin's getting it, and you saw it. And I know you're, like, again, you can have respect for the athlete and the player, and then also recognize some of the commentary, I think, is colored by their own school affiliation. And I don't know what you think, Brew. I do not think Caitlin Clark's going to go to the WNBA next year and struggle.
No, I think she's going to eat it up.
Yes.
I think she's going to go crazy in that league.
And
she, like I said last week, she is the best I've seen, but I can't give her the GOAT status.
Okay. I'm not sure that, and I see some people like, if you're, I think it was LeBron, it's like if you're there's a certain amount of, if you're hating on Caitlin Clark, that is out of bounds, and obviously there's no place for it. If you are saying Paige is better than Caitlin Clark, and we're going to ride with our UConn Huskies, and she's going to come into the WNBA, and I can't wait, and we're putting ads out, I think that is exactly what women's basketball and WNBA needs.
Hold on, to be clear, like somebody said, oh man, women's basketball's now got to the point to where it's all a GOAT debate, and we're doing it obviously now. Can I just say something that's actually that once your sport has graduated to the silliest conversations, it actually means it is crossed over.
Great. And but you are right. That'll be great for the league.
And I just want to, because maybe I said it weird.
Well, I also now I need to defend.
So I want to make it clear. I don't think what Diana said was out of bounds. I think it was a sports take.
Yeah,
and you know what's also in bounds? Me saying that's a bad take.
Oh,
you know what I mean? I think that was. I think that's. I think
that's
the
right.
idea
that she's not going to
Paige
play
is
well?
better than Caitlin, and that Caitlin's not going to walk into the WNBA and immediately be one of the 20 best players in that league.
20.
I
hope so.
I think she'll be better than 20. I think she'll be one of the top 10.
I do too, but their commentary was she's about to be playing with grown women and she's going to struggle. And I'm saying I disagree. I think that is a fair take, but a bad take.
Yeah,
that's all.
She's gonna
Maybe
get
a little Wembanyama-esque, like start off a little slow and then get it halfway through the year.
I just think it's.
I think she's going to play tremendous.
I think she's going to immediately be one of the best players in the league.
I do too.
All right, be good. Yeah. Dawn Staley wins her 3rd championship in 7 years, undefeated season. She's 109-3 in her last 3 seasons. Let's take a look at her resume. Win percentage, .901. Finals 4, 6 national titles, 3. So what's next? Scott Fowler of the Charlotte Observer says Staley's next challenge should be coaching the Charlotte Hornets. Actually seems like a bit of a punishment, but it's an interesting idea. Nick, your reaction.
All right, first I want to. I've had the pleasure of being able to meet and talk with Dawn Staley a couple times in my life. She's like one of those people that, at least for me, you're almost makes you nervous being around. Like you don't want to you want to impress them. Like she just carries a real presence. Like this is the first time I met you, bro. Like but I just want to give. She took over in 2009 and they were 10-18 her first year. They didn't win their first SEC championship for 5 years in 2014. And man, once she got it rolling, 2015 she makes her first Final Four. 2017 the national championship. 2020 they would have won it, I believe. The pandemic canceled the tournament. They were, I think, 32-1, and they don't get a tournament. You know what I mean? And now she could have won 3 in a row and has won 2 of the last 3, which is to say, everything else she does at South Carolina is gravy. And I understand people saying the Charlotte Hornets should do it. I wonder why the University of Kentucky wouldn't call on the men's side of things. So that is a program where Pitino won, Tubby won, Coach Cal won, and I look at the NBA and some of the best coaching jobs. I think she could do it because people are like, are people going to listen to, a woman telling them how to, I don't think the Timberwolves are like Chris Finch really got down at his D3 basketball or Dagenham. Our friend of the show, Danny Parkins, just wrote a book, Pipeline to the Pros, about how so many of the guys that are head coaches or GMs were D3 basketball players. I bet a lot of men's players respect her playing career more than somebody that played, you know what I mean, like Jeff Van Gundy's playing career or things like that. So I think she could do it. I just think her ability to relate to young people and the recruiting and the molding is so special on the collegiate level that I would think the next challenge might be go get Kentucky back to glory rather than the hamster wheel that is the NBA, which is how can you succeed in Charlotte? Like Michael Jordan tore that thing down so poorly and left the cupboard so bare.
We're done with the GOAT debate.
I'm just saying. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, look, I like the Kentucky idea. I think that makes some sense. And a lot of people, like you said, whether it's the NBA or men's college players may say, well, will they listen to a woman? Will they let her be an authority? Look, in the NBA, their last 2 CEOs of the Players Association, which the players choose, have been women.
Oh, yeah.
So they're showing that they will listen to the authority of a woman. So if I'm either of these, I'm not just giving her the job, but I would love to talk to her if I'm them. So let me go to Charlotte. Definitely, I will put her on the list and talk to her. But I don't think, look, most guys that have come from college to coach the NBA have not succeeded. And I'm talking about guys that won Calipari, Rick Pitino, Jerry Tarkanian. You can go, and then there's those are the ones that have won one champion. Who?
Brad Stevens won.
Brad Stevens did a good job, and Billy Donovan, okay.
Billy Donovan,
But they haven't won a championship.
But most haven't. I mean, we could Mike Montgomery and Lon Kruger and guys like. So it's a tough jump. So if I were the Hornets, I might put her on the list. But no, I'm not just giving her the job. I think that's crazy. So, but I would. Kentucky is a good situation for her.
But I don't like either of them.
You just want her to stay?
I want her to stay. I think what makes college sports interesting is the churn of players and the consistency of coaches and programs, right? So it's like Calhoun has been at UConn for 39 years. So it's like Calhoun. I'm sorry, Gino's been at
Calhoun was there.
Calhoun has also been there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gino's been there for 39 years. So I like the idea of her just being the anchor of South Carolina. They're always there. The players. She had new starting five this year.
It's not going to, like, what we have seen particularly in the women's game is you can have a decade-plus run of running it. You know what I mean? Pat Summitt ran the game for my entire youth.
To Gino.
Right, and then Gino ran it on a level even higher than Pat did for the better part of 15 years, and now she appears to be at the beginning of that to where it could keep going. That's for sure.
Now we'll talk about UConn. Purdue versus UConn, me versus Dusty.
Dusty is so melancholy.
I mean, leave him alone.
I see no confidence.
He's so nervous.
I see no confidence whatsoever.
Dusty's our big Purdue fan.
Oh, my gosh. It's sad. But anyway, I give him a 25 to 30% chance.
25 to 30.
Yeah, which I think is
27.5.
Yeah, about that. Now, I think the key is their formula is they got the big man, obviously, Zach Edey, inside, and they shoot it well from three. They're one of 2 teams in the nation that shot 40% from three. So obviously the key is Edey's got to punish them inside to the point where they have to double him, and then they got to hit those threes. Now, that's the thing, because they got Klingon with UConn, who's 7'2". So he should at least be able to match up somewhat with Edey. So I think it's going to be a challenge, but if Edey can play well inside and they can hit their threes at a high level, then I'll give them a shot.
50% maybe.
I mean, look, I've seen stranger things happen.
Yeah, but and this is dope because it's pretty rare actually, especially in the last 20 years of college basketball, to get the pretty clear-cut 2 best teams throughout the year to be able to play in the Final Four. I mean, if people watch this show regularly, whenever we would do our college basketball promos, like back in November or December, Wilds would be joking but serious about UConn or Purdue kind of toggling that 1 and 2 rating back and forth. And it is a cool matchup because it will give young people a bit of an idea of what professional basketball used to look like.
Yeah, I like it.
You know, where the focal point is a dominant big man is what I mean. You know what I mean? To where I understand. It's not exactly a perfect comp, but it's just they play through a 7-footer that they're going to live or die with. I am curious what UConn is how they're going to react to their big guy not being the biggest guy on the court for the only game they've played like that all year. And I want Purdue to win because I want Dusty to be happy and I want Wilds to feel pain. But I also can't get past this. UConn's not just 11-0 in their last 11 tournament games.
Yeah.
They have covered 11 straight spreads.
Oh, you love that.
Well, it's impossible, and the fact that I have not made $1 off it is just maddening. In fact, I think I bet against them a couple times last year.
Why did you do that?
Last year. And so you've been saying all year that no one can come close to UConn.
Yes.
And I'm rooting against you, but I think you're right.
So we think Zach Edey's going to get his. I think it's going to be very similar to what we just saw with Iowa. Like, oh, you have one star player. They're going to get theirs. But maybe if we can slow down everybody else, you're going to have a hard time really ratcheting it up. I have 2 things. One, do you remember LeVar Ball?
Yeah, I do.
Do we remember?
Remember LeVar Ball?
Wasn't that long
He said
ago.
something famous. He said, never lost.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Well,
5-0. Well, UConn's 5-0 in championship games. So this will be our 6th title.
That's impressive.
And then this tournament, UConn's starting 5. So who do you want to stop here? If your game plan is, who do you want? Like, you know what?
I mean, Klingon.
Let's put the brakes. Okay.
They want to get Klingon in foul trouble.
But
that's the idea.
Everybody scores.
No, I
And
get that.
Castle's the best NBA prospect.
Yes.
No, but don't you think
Newton's going to go.
Don't you think that the recipe for Purdue is that we are nearing the under 12 timeout and Klingon picks up his 2nd foul?
So lame. That's on the board.
And
Definitely on the
I'm
board.
not saying I'm saying if you're Purdue, even if there are some empty possessions early, I think the goal has to be to not only play through Edey, but drive at Klingon and see because he's going to be under so much pressure to defend Edey.
Yeah.
And then if all of a sudden he has to defend softer, that's when Edey can really take advantage. Like, that's just what I think. Because UConn is clearly the better team. You're right about that.
It's an odd refereeing assignment. Like, You got to think, like, two big guys, like, let them play a little bit.
I agree. I agree.
Don't let UConn get... The refs decide another UConn game. Don't get me started. John Calipari leaving Kentucky, finalizing a 5-year deal with the Razorbacks. Coach Cal, 15 years at UK, went from great to good. First 6 years, 4 Final Fours and a 2012 championship with AD. Last 9 years, no Final Fours and losses to Oakland and St. Peter's. Brew, your reaction?
Well, I was one of those that thought Cal should have got fired after this year's tournament. And I think this works out for all three parties, for Cal, for Kentucky, and for Arkansas. For Cal, even though they brought him back, it was going to be ugly with those fans. It was ugly last year. It was toxic there last year with the fans and Cal, and this year would have been even worse. So he needed to get out of that situation, all right? The only reason they kept him, I think, was because he had $33 million left if they fired him. So for Kentucky, you get to get rid of him, which they probably wanted to do, and then you're not on the hook for that money. And for Arkansas, which has still been Eric Musselman did a good job there. This year they struggled, but for the most part, he did a good job. But Cal is just on a different level from Musselman in terms of college basketball. And so I think he brings a panache. He probably brings the type of recruits they haven't had in mass since Nolan Richardson was there, like NBA caliber, players in the future.
Corliss
and so
walking through that.
Scotty Thurman, whatever. But so I think this takes him to another level, gives him a shot in the arm. And so I like it for all three.
Classic 2 for Colin Cowherd.
Oh, I don't know.
He's
you're
been
out
on.
classic twos
For my dear friend and mentor Cowherd, I'll give him one. I mean, he's been on the anti-Calipari corner for as long as I've been listening to him. And the fact of the matter is this: he underachieved at Kentucky.
No doubt.
Pitino had a 6-year run, 1 Title III Final Fours, 5 Elite Eights in 6 years. Tubby Smith had an 8-year run, and they didn't like him. Won a championship, made a Final Four, made 4 Elite Eights. Cal. It was awesome for 10 years and underachieved in those. 1 championship, 4 Final Fours, 7 Elite Eights, just the 1 ring. And the 5 years since then, they haven't even been to the Sweet 16. Mm-hmm. And so all the naysayers that were like, great recruiter, not a great tactician, all that stuff. And I like Cal, and I've always kind of defended him. But it's an ignominious end. And if he doesn't get Arkansas back to where it was with Nolan Richardson, it's going to be like, wait, John Calipari ended his career where? It's going to feel weird.
He'll come back around.
I don't know, man. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.